All right, finally we come to the 10th plague, the death of the firstborn. Moses calls all the elders of Israel and says to them, have every family sacrifice a lamb. Take a bunch of hyssop and dip it in the blood which is in the basin, and touch the lintel and the 2 doorposts with the blood of the lamb. Stay in your houses until morning. For when the Lord sees the blood on the doorposts, he will pass over you and not allow you to be slain. Moses also tells the people to eat the lamb with unleavened bread and bitter herbs in a ritual meal, and to do it every year in memory of the Lord's Passover. Thus begins the Passover, a feast still kept by the Jews every year to this very day, still kept by a great many of us here at St. Francis de Sales, but also kept by every single one of us here at St. Francis de Sales by our Passover, the Eucharist. The feast of Passover is filled with meaning for us as Christians. The sacrificial lamb points forward to Christ, who died to save us from death. And the ritual meal of Passover directly morphs into the Eucharist, where we eat the flesh of our sacrificial lamb. Jesus' Last Supper, where he instituted the Eucharist, was a Passover meal. Jesus very deliberately changed the liturgy to turn the Passover meal into a memorial of his death and resurrection, and a participation in his death and resurrection. As Christians, we celebrate Passover together every time we receive the Eucharist, every Sunday, and most especially at Easter. Consider that chant. You want to bring in the candle at Easter Vigil, how this is the night of our Passover. I know I went through Passover pretty quickly, but I figure this is you know this already, am I right? Mm-hmm. This is not news to you. All right. And then finally, the parting of the Red Sea. When Pharaoh sees that his firstborn son is dead, and every firstborn son among the Egyptians is dead, he tells Moses and Aaron to go forever with all the Hebrews, with all their possessions, right now. The Egyptian people, who are desperate to appease this God of Israel, give the Hebrews their golden idols, their jewelry, all their valuables, as the Hebrews leave. Thus, the Hebrew slaves non-violently plunder Egypt on their way out. God leads the Israelites southeast into the wilderness, appearing to them visibly as a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. How nice would it be if we could follow God visibly as a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night? Ever thought about that? Yeah. What do you think? Why doesn't God do that with us?
Gave us free will.
Gave us free will. He gave them free will too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He gave us the Spirit.
And gave us the Spirit.
Tells us where to go and when to go.
And this is true. 3,000 plus years ago, they didn't know God. They give evidence of that over and over again. God's got to lead them by the bridle, so to speak. God doesn't want to do that with us. God values our freedom. And God gives us his Spirit so that we can follow God and make good choices without having to be coerced. Pharaoh's humility didn't last long. Within a few days, Pharaoh decides he made a terrible mistake by letting the Hebrews go. He sends his chariots after the slaves. The Israelites are trapped with their backs against the Red Sea, right where God wanted them. When the Israelites see the chariots coming, they turn on Moses. We told you to leave us alone in the first place. Why did you bring us out of Egypt? It would be better for us to stay in Egypt as slaves than to die out here in the wilderness. And Moses delivers what I think is one of the great lines of Exodus. Do not be afraid. Stand firm and see the salvation of the Lord. The Egyptians you see today, you shall never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only be still. How often is that good advice for us? Do not be afraid. Stand firm. The Lord will fight for you. You need only be still. Exactly. This is a precursor to be still and know that I am God. And then to Moses, right after that, God says, Why are you crying out to me? Tell the sons of Israel, go forward. Lift up your rod and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it, that the sons of Israel may go on dry ground through the sea. So, when we can't do anything, we choose to be still. Trust that God will fight for us and watch God fight for us. When we can do something, when God's calling us to make a move, we move forward and we watch God work. And as we all know, the Israelites walked through the Red Sea on dry land. It must have been beyond eerie to walk through those two watery walls of death that could come crashing back down at any moment. Talk about a major trust exercise. And once the last Israelite was out of the sea, Moses raised his staff, and the walls of water came crashing down, drowning the Egyptian chariots. The people of Israel rejoice. Moses' sister Miriam picks up a tambourine and leads the people in song, and they all sing, "Let us sing to the Lord, he has covered himself in glory," for a couple of pages. The people of Israel are finally free. And for a moment, they are safe. They're united. They're incredibly grateful to God. They're in the right place. And that's where we'll leave them until next week. Random trivia time. Did you know that for the Ten Commandments movie, they actually hired the Egyptian army, the Egyptian cavalry,
Wow.
and used actual Egyptian soldiers with their horses to pull the chariots, and those poor horses never pulled chariots before, and they're all confused. But those were the extras in the Ten Commandments movie. They hired out the Egyptian cavalry.